Good morning, Santa Clarita. This is Louie Diaz coming to you live from the KHTS newsroom. He's one of the code news directors here, and I have the honor and privilege to sit down with Jeff Pelzold. He's the superintendent for the Newhall School District. Um, he he's here to talk about the last year and what's to come for school. So Jeff, thanks for taking time to come and talk about the school year with us.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, Louie. Thanks for inviting me.
You're welcome. Just to give people a idea, what exactly is the job of a superintendent?
Well, as I tell, it's often when I talk to kids in the classroom, I talk about kind of like the CEO or the head person of a business, a large corporation. That really is what the job of a superintendent is to oversee, in our case, all 10 of our schools, make sure that kids are safe, kids are learning, and supporting our staff and families and the needs of kids.
That's great. So with that responsibility, 2019 was a normal year. Everyone was in school, businesses were thriving. 2020 started getting interesting, and then once March hit, everything kind of just halted. How was it for you as someone, like you said, like a CEO of a whole school district overseeing 10 schools, which is a lot of students, a lot of staff? What was that experience like for you to have to abruptly change and get school running virtually when you've never had to do that before? What was that like?
It's a really interesting question. I think the shift from in-person teaching and learning to online when you're in an elementary setting is a gigantic shift. We had a lot of technology and kids were using technology, but not to the point of where we're asking them to log in every day, use Google Meets, make sure that they understood how to get into the classroom and all of that kind of stuff, and the training for our teachers. So that was a huge shift. And I think one of the things that I noticed right away for myself as a superintendent, I really love being on school sites and being able to go in and see what our teachers are doing and what our kids are learning. And that became the big vacuum and void for me as soon as we transitioned into that. And that's what I've missed this entire school year, is that opportunity. And it's so nice now as we've transitioned back even into a hybrid model to be able to see kids and teachers doing what they do best inside the classroom.
Yeah. How did that work with attendance? What was the requirements for students? Did they have to, I heard different things that students were, if they didn't log on or if they logged on and just walked away, they would still be marked as present. How did you guys form things to make sure that students were present and actually participating?
Yeah, we really focused on making sure that kids were engaged daily in what was going on in terms of their core subjects like English language arts and math, and participating in the classroom, whether it was in the live meets, getting the homework done. There was a variety of ways for them to be considered present, because there might be times where they couldn't make the live meet, for example, but they were able to get the homework done later on that day. So we looked at it from a couple of different angles.
Yeah. Do you feel that this, even though as crazy it was, telling kids to stay home, they can't come to school and be with each other and socialize, is there any positive benefits, do you think, for any students to be able to learn virtually from home?
I definitely do, actually. I think we have heard from many, many parents, actually. I remember after we finished the fall conferences, and I had a number of parents that shared with me that they thought that their kids were learning, but once they sat down and talked to the teachers and looked at their report cards, they were so incredibly impressed to see the actual documentation that teachers had of kids learning, progressing. And so I think there's been a lot of positives around the work that our teachers, they have been so dedicated to ensure that learning is still taking place. And for some of our families, they are asking around, will we continue with more of a permanent online academy, even beyond this year, and what are our options moving forward? And those are things that we're discussing now as a school district moving forward.
So even though there were benefits for the students, my sister's a teacher for LAUSD, and it was tough for her because a lot of the students she worked with and currently works with now are students that are deaf who have cochlear implants. So it was tough for her, but speaking with you, who oversees the entirety of the Newhall School District, what was the general feedback from the teachers themselves? Did they find benefits to it, or was it a struggle even for just general ed teachers as well?
I think the key thing was training and support that we did try to provide our teachers as we transitioned to this. I think that was instrumental in helping them feel more comfortable with transitioning to an online platform. I think also our ability to make sure that students had devices, and if they needed them, they could check them out. We distributed over 4,300 devices to families and over 1,000 hotspots, so kids have unlimited access to wireless data. That was another big point of emphasis for us. So really making sure that kids had access was the first thing, and then following up to make sure if they weren't logging on, we had staff at the sites following up with families to figure out what was there. And then I'll say another thing that I feel like we did that was pretty unique is we partnered with all of our community childcare providers that were on our school site, and we provided a subsidy for families so that they could afford to drop their children off and have them work in a classroom with a childcare provider, so they were able to be there all day while parents were able to go to work. And we did that. We've done that since August, and we're continuing that. And we've subsidized to the tune of about 1.1 million through December of this last year, and now we've extended that another $500,000 through the rest of the school year. So
Wow.
It's really a partnership, but it was an investment for our families to ensure kids could safely have a place to learn and parents could still go to work.
That's awesome. For any of you just tuning into us on Facebook Live or here on the airwaves, this is Louie Diaz, co-news director here at KHTS Radio, sitting down with Superintendent Jeff Pelzold, who oversees the Newhall School District. Talking about the last year. Jeff, you had mentioned that there were benefits to the students learning at home, but do you feel that there's any grade levels in particular, even though your school district teaches pre-K through 5th grade, do you think there's any grade level in particular that is most affected in a negative way from having to be not on campus, not with their friends? Is there any, whether it's mental or just being able to having lack of learning help, you think there's any grade most affected by that?
You know, I think honestly, it's probably the greatest challenge for our TK and our K students, even some preschool students, because, you know, trying to teach a child how to learn how to read through a online platform is pretty challenging. I think our teachers did an exceptional job, but I think it's more challenging for them because this is their first time being enrolled in a school setting, even though it was a virtual setting. And so I think it's more challenging for our younger kids. Our older kids, you know, they're used to using technology, and we have had that in place in our district for a number of years. But I do think in the primary, it's more challenging for kids to grasp and really pay attention and be focused for a longer period of time.
Yeah. And one last question for you here. Looking back, is there anything that you wish would have been handled differently from the state or county over the last year? Or do you think there's anything that you as a superintendent would have done differently? Obviously, you guys were having to make decisions on the fly, but it was,
You know, I think the lack of clear communication that came from the county and state and the mixed messages were the greatest challenge for school districts. Too often we were not given lead time to make decisions when things were going to change on the fly. And I wish there would have just been an alignment between what was coming out from the CDC, then the state, and the county. Because what's interesting, and a lot of people don't know this, is the CDC can give guidelines, but we as a district can't necessarily follow the CDC guidelines until the state adopts those guidelines. And then from there, even the county, in our case, LA County, could have the same guidelines or more restrictive. And our county was more restrictive and a little slower to roll out. And I think that was frustrating for many parents in Santa Clarita because they see Santa Clarita being different than the larger like LAUSD area and the population and the demographics. And so I think that was frustrating. And I think as a whole, I wish there would have been a little more flexibility at looking at cities or communities, not just an entire county, because LA County is huge.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that stuff is starting to calm down a little bit. I'm sure you're starting to get a little more sleep at night now that kids are back on campus. So yeah. I appreciate you coming in and talking to us, Jeff, and I wish you the best of luck. And again, this is Louie Diaz with the KHTS Newsroom. Have a good rest of your day, Santa Clarita, and happy National Chocolate Covered Raisin Day.